Okay, welcome to Hexham Town Council here at Hexham Abbey Priors Hall on Monday the 9th of June 2025 at 6 p.m. I'm the Chair of the Council, I'm the Mayor, Councillor Derek Kennedy. First of all, we are going to move to a presentation, so it's item number 7. And we're going to receive a presentation on the Hexham Community Archaeology Project. So, at a recent Moorgate Town, the Hexham Community Archaeology Project had a stall, and I met with them, and we had a very, very interesting chat, and this resulted in a request for them to do a presentation to us in the Hexham Town Council. So I thought it would be very interesting for us all to listen to this. I found it quite fascinating in the talk I had with them, and they kindly agreed to this presentation. So we have a Jane Harrison and a Sarah Miles who are going to conduct 15-20 minute presentation, and then we'll do questions and answers also.
Yeah, questions are the most important.
So I hand over to you.
Thanks ever so much for having us. It's really good to be here. We run a small community interest company called Community Archaeology North. We're both professional archaeologists who run community archaeology projects for up to 25 years. I grew up in the northeast, and I moved back 6 years ago to Hexham, and it suddenly occurred to me that why was I going outside of Hexham? Because there was a wonderful community archaeology project to be done here in the town. I want to tell you why and how, but we have already sort of begun to gauge the level of local interest. And Derek met us at the farmers market, where we had a lot of people visiting the stall and signing up as volunteers. We have got 130 odd people who volunteered to be involved, and that's not just individuals, it's families. And we have got the support of Hexham Local History Society, who've provided the funding to do 2 test pit weekends. I'll explain about them in a moment. We have 30 test pit locations, at least, within the town. And when we sent an email out today to say, would you like to volunteer to be involved in the first weekend in July, we had how many?
20, 30 back within about 15 minutes.
and we had an open meeting in the Great Hall on the 2nd of June, to which 95 people came on a Monday evening, and there was just a lovely buzz. So there's clearly a real interest in doing community archaeology in Hexham. And I'll explain the how, but the slides that show us working with the villagers at Long Framlington, doing these micro excavations, which are what we're going to suggest as the core of the Hexham Archaeology Project. They're little 1 metre excavations which everybody can be involved with, because there are jobs for everybody, whether you want to dig or not. But let me just talk very briefly about the history of Hexham, because you see the Abbey, you see the Moot Hall, you see our beautiful centre, and you think it's a historic town, everybody must know all about Hexham. And of course there's been some fantastic documentary and historical research done. There's some wonderful ways in which our history is presented, but we know next to nothing about what was here before the Abbey. We don't even know if there was any Roman settlement here on the Hexham headland. It's highly unlikely that there was nothing. There certainly wasn't a military presence that we've discovered yet, but there must have been somebody. And we don't know anything about the development of the non-ecclesiastical settlement around the Abbey and how the early medieval town developed. So there's an awful lot for such a wonderful place with such a fantastic history that we do not know. And I think that was something that sort of chimed to a lot of the residents that we've spoken to. Now, the way in which there is a problem, of course, with a town or a village when it comes to archaeology, and that's people and houses, the places we live, the shops we have, they're there, they're in the way. But if you go into any space where you can put them and put in these little 1 metre square test pits, and you dig them down to about 1 metre in depth or to undisturbed ground, and you collect everything. You do it in neat layers, you sieve the soil and you collect the pottery and any objects, absolutely everything from that soil. If you have enough of them dotted around an area, you can get an awful lot of real archaeological research information from them. But the other great thing about them is that they are hugely communal. You do them, you can have a mix of people with experience and people who have never done anything before. You can have children, you can do it for groups. Some people can do the fines washing and sorting. And so it's sociable, it's gets people outside, working in teams, accidentally doing all sorts of bits of maths and communicating, and it's a fantastic tool for all sorts of purposes. It's archaeologically important, and it can be part of a sort of health and well-being as well as a sort of community engagement side of things. So this is actually the groups filling the test pits back up, because once they're dug, they get filled back up again and you wouldn't know they've been there. And you can see in this photograph, that's a finished one. And they've put the turfs back. So even if you do it in a beautiful lawn, by the time we have neatly squared off the turfs, taken them off, dug the test pit over 2 days, filled it all back in again, minus all the things we've taken out, the fines and pottery, put the turfs back, 2 days later you wouldn't know we'd been there. It's a really contained process as well. And the reason why we can get so much information from them is that the pottery, pieces of pottery, or sherds of pottery as we call them, that we get out of them can be dated, that's one thing, so you get a chronological picture coming out of each test pit. And if you've got a scatter of them, and you've got 5 test pits on one side of a road that have medieval pottery and 5 on the other that don't, that tells you some interesting things. Because the number that you get out of each of the test pits also tells you about what people were doing at that particular time. Because there's a kind of algorithm. So for the numbers that you get out, you can tell if you have a very small number, that might be just the kitchen midden, the kitchen rubbish that they put onto a garden patch or a field to fertilise it, or they might be just working in the fields away from home. If you have up to about 10, they're probably living nearby or coming there very regularly. More than 10 people are there, and you've got someone's place that they're living nearby. If there aren't any, then during the period that the pottery is missing, it was pasture meadow, orchard, woodland, or it's been stripped by some kind of process since. So they're tiny, but they pack a punch. Now, there's one project that we've done before. We've done quite a number of test pit campaigns, but there's one which has a very interesting sort of resonance with Hexham in a slightly sort of surprising location, and that's East Oxford. We did a big test pit campaign in the very diverse suburb of Oxford, outside of the historic city centre, where it's the sort of the suburb that extends down to the Cowley car factory, and is much more economically, socially and educationally diverse than many parts of Oxford. And during that campaign we did test pits in little lawns, in tiny gardens, in community gardens, in charity run orchards, on playing fields, because they're so tiny that even if you've got a playing field, you can tuck them round the edges and they don't disturb whatever's going on. And that's Google Earth of the area of East Oxford that we were working in. There's a river, there's a golf course, there's a factory, there's a medieval hospital, and there's some wonderful old churches. So there's some rather nice little sort of comparisons going on. And we did, over that area, and you can see the sorts of bigger green spaces, and that's not including all the little bits of garden and back little plots and things. But we scattered test pits all over the area. It was rapidly suburbanised. It grew quite rapidly in the 19th century, a bit actually like Hexham, or in the earlier 20th century. So that there were quite a lot of surviving bits of archaeological evidence in the test pits. And in the process of that, we discovered a lot more about the leper hospital site. We discovered the Roman farms that were completely unknown in the area, and the first of the early medieval settlements. And of course, at that point in the early medieval period, quite often settlement wasn't in big villages. It was farms and hamlets, and then perhaps a little bit more of a concentration in one place. So the area that Hexham now covers may have rolled over lots of smaller little settlements. The other thing that it would be good to do is geophysics, which is the X-raying of the soil, and I'm happy to answer questions about that, because you can do geophysics and then target little test bits to test what you've picked up in that ground X-ray. Know where this is? So here's the Google Earth of Hexham. Again, river, factory, golf course, medieval hospital, wonderful abbey, a town that grew quite rapidly late on in its career. And here's one of the first of the early maps, and I started drawing circles on places of interest, areas of interest, and I thought, I don't know why I'm doing this. The whole of the area that Hexham covers is potentially of huge archaeological significance, and that's really important, because that means it doesn't matter if you've got an old house or a new house, or a small house or a big house, your garden, your little patch of land could have really important information. So it's a very sort of inclusive approach as well. But anyway, you can see that the main streets on there, and they'd be some of the targets, and of course there are areas in the old Burgage plots where you could tuck in a little test pit. So that's just a brief outline, because I want to leave time for questions, but we have got this funding from the Hexham Local History Society for 2 trial test pit weekends. As I said, we've launched the first one, and really we wanted to come to you just to tell you about it, but also just in case we need permissions at any point from you, at least you'll know about what we're up to. And also, we're in the process of drawing up a fairly major lottery fund bid. We're in discussion with them already, and it's got past the first sort of hurdle. And obviously, when we get to the final stage, a letter of support from the council can be a really helpful thing if you feel so minded. And then if there are, in the meantime, while we wait to push this through, any tiny little pots, every little helps, that will help keep it going and the momentum going in community engagement or health and well-being, then we'd be delighted to try and bid for little bits that there might be, although I know it's so difficult these days. Anyway, that's, I think, probably enough from us. So if there are questions, we'd be delighted to try and answer them.
Okay, thank you very much. Very, very interesting. And I think it's a really good choice of a place to come in, like an ancient orchid town like Hexham. So you mentioned first of all that you would like a letter of support. So if councillors are minded, I'd be happy to sign that letter of support. Okay with everybody? Okay, if you get in touch with us, we will organise that. So I guess. Plus, I know you've got dates on there, so we're happy to communicate. We've got an extensive social media outreach, so if you could come to us, if you've got an electronic poster or something that we can push out, and we'll get that out to our related things. So I'll now open it up to questions. Has anybody got questions? Suzanne, early?
Huge detectorists fan, by the way. I wonder if that's part of it. There's been a big not detective, detectorists. Yeah, have you got any sites in mind? I know that the Romans famously missed out Hexham, but presumably there were river crossings. Have you got any suspicions about where you want to dig first? Or?
Well, that's a good question, because when you're doing a test pit campaign, you've got various questions that you think you want to get answered, but you have to start with a random sample, because actually what's more important is that you don't exclude anything. So you start by responding to where people are offering their gardens, but also perhaps going for the older areas, and you see what happens, and then you have a sort of iterative, reflexive process where you then say, okay, we need to try and get more test pits in this area because we're getting surprising results, because we're getting older pottery where we weren't expecting it. So you have to be incredibly open-minded, because the great thing about this sort of approach is that it can really unpick preconceptions. But obviously it would be lovely to try and explore the hospital site. Yeah. So we need to get friendly with the golf course and persuade them we aren't going to dig up the entire thing. We just want just little. And of course the seal is a really interesting I mean, that's obviously a big open space, so there are all sorts of questions around it. But why the seal is a question which I think a lot of people were asking. It really got people interested at the open meeting, because we don't really know why the big open space that is the seal has been, started off like that and has been preserved. And the siting of the Abbey suggests that there may have been something going on both to the east of the Abbey and possibly around the seal. And there's argument about, does seal stand for, is it from the Old English or Old Norse indeed for hall, or is it another origin in the name? So there has been some geophysics done, but no one has done really modern geophysics on the seal. And that would be really interesting, just to have a look.
Absolutely, it's a natural amphitheatre, isn't it? Well, if indeed it was natural.
Well, when you look at that old map, this is really interesting, because I thought, it's been landscaped to death, and it hasn't actually. That topography is quite natural, and there was a really interesting lump underneath the Seal School, which is another interesting thing actually. Both the Seal School and Queen Elizabeth have approached us before we had time to approach them. For involvement in schools, which we've done a lot of in the past, and we're talking to other groups as well, because there are various groups who support various groups of people for whom you can tailor a test pit event specifically for them, particularly if they've got their own patch of garden, which we've done quite a lot. But yes, the seal, everyone got really excited about that, because everyone was, oh yeah, what my dog just think, how did this happen?
We always get told we can't touch anywhere or drill anywhere because there's bones just beneath the surface. So the skate park has to be exactly on the same outline, just in case we have Monk's school pop up or something. So, very
Would make good headlines.
Okay, Stephen.
I'm interested to know about your lottery bid, something I know a little bit about. Do you link with other groups in that lottery bid? Is it specifically for Hexham, and how big might that project be?
It's specifically for Hexham, but because we want to be as collaborative as possible, we're already obviously linked up with Hexham Local History Society, and the Civic Society we very much want to as well. But also all the surrounding community archaeology groups, because there isn't one in Hexham, or hasn't been till now. But we've been talking to North of Tyne Community Archaeology Group, because it helps them to train their volunteers if they can link up with people who can help with that training. We've been doing quite a lot of that already, supporting other community archaeology groups. But it will be for Hexham, and we're talking to someone from Lottery in a couple of weeks about the scale, because with the sort of interest we've had, it's got the potential to be quite a big project, and certainly one that will be over 3 or 4 years rather than just a year. So we're opening negotiations with them about the scale of it.
So if you've got through phase 1, I mean, money's as tight now as it's ever been.
Absolutely.
You've done very well with them. So the size of the project would be, I know it's one's a piece of string, but it'd be under 100,000,
No,
more than that?
Yeah, so we're going for the second.
If you've got through phase 1, well done.
Thank you. Penny?
Yes, very interesting. So you've talked a lot about the engagement and the process on the ground. Do you actually have a bank of archaeologists that you bring with you, or are you always dependent on the sort of technical knowledge and expertise of people within the area that you're working in?
Both. One of the brilliant things, as you will all know, about working with communities, that people bring all sorts of skills with them. And that's one thing. But also, we have been working as archaeologists in Northumberland for quite some time, and we have a core of volunteers, but experienced and thoroughly trained ones. And our pattern is to, for example, if you were digging a test pit, you'd have somebody who was sort of supervising and making sure that they were doing the teaching and training and keeping everybody sort of engaged, but also an experienced volunteer who's done it many times before and who we know is also good at engagement. And then you'd have new people. So you have a sort of process of passing on the learning. and that's the way we work. So we make sure, I mean, the quality of the training and the engagement is absolutely vital to us, and you know, that's why that's just really important that if people volunteer their time to you, you have to give them the respect of giving them some good training and an experience that is fulfilling and gives them what they expected. And so that's very much the way we look at it.
Very good. Any more questions? Okay, well, thank you so very, very much. So I see you have dates on there of the 19th and the 20th of July and the 13th and 14th of September.
That's during Heritage Open Days, the September one, that's why I picked that. And if the homeowners agree, or the shop owners indeed in some cases, we would hope that when we have those weekends going on, people could actually come and visit. So we would publicise that so that people could actually come and drop in. And so people who might be thinking about having a test pit can come and see, and locals can just pop in and see what's going on. And again, so you get more people interested and involved. And if anyone's got any more questions, then please just feel free to contact us.
Are you local to Hexham?
Yeah, we both live in Hexham.
Yeah, okay. I was just wondering how you know what your depth of knowledge was.
Yeah, no, we're over neuroscience.
Okay. Yeah. No, just a simple question, just in case you needed a bit more, you know, if there was any intelligence you needed from anyone.
Well, there may very well be, but yes, we are both Hexham.
Right, well, that's excellent. Good. Well, thank you so much. A big round of applause. Thank you very much. So, you're happy to, if you wish to leave, we'll let you close down.
If you do want to contact us, we have a website which is cancic.com, and our email address is canorthcic@gmail.com. But Andrew has our details.
Yeah, I'll pass it over.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Oh, thank you. Okay. Right, so we'll go back to our agenda. We now go on to public participation. So conscious, obviously as new councillors in attendance, so public participation is something that Hexham Town Council brought in some years ago to invite members of the public to come to Hexham Town Council. Remembering this is a town council meeting. It's not a public meeting, it's a town council meeting, but this is the only area of the council meeting where we invite members of the public to put questions to us that are relevant to members of the council or about Hexham, so it has a scope. So I will now turn to members of the public to see if anybody got any questions. Okay, so we will now invite that person to stand to ask their question and and say what their name was and ask that question.
I'm Wendy Breach and I live in Hexham, and I wish to draw a relevant matter to the attention of the council. I don't know whether you've seen the email that I asked Councillor Higgins to have sent around about Hexham's workhouse buildings. Maybe you've not seen it. For those of you who don't know me, I'm involved with several community groups, including Hexham Civic Society and Hexham Community-Led Housing, whose aims are to support the development of genuinely affordable, modest, yet sustainably built housing on those few close to town centre sites that are still available. Some sites have made us very cross indeed, particularly the heritage assets that are the workhouse buildings and also the Abbey Clinic building. Both sold from the public sector, the NHS, into the private sector in 2010 and 2014, and since then nothing done to provide affordable housing or indeed any housing in the town. Both sites have been abandoned, they're deteriorating fast, boarded up windows, history of vandalism, not to mention ISIL was in this historic town. The 79th group, who described themselves as an asset management company, own the workhouse buildings and have made claims to potential investors about how the workhouse is being developed and how they have the support of Northumberland County Council, Hexham Civic Society and others, to put in a planning application for 48 flats to replace the planning permission granted in 2019 for 34 flats, quote, greatly enhancing the profitability of our scheme. That's where they're coming from. But the 79th group directors are now being investigated for widespread fraud, and all their 8 companies have gone into administration. We've had enough. Hexham Community-Led Housing, and I hope the rest of the town, have a vision to restore the historic Hexham Workhouse as a landmark gateway to the town, transforming it into high-quality, affordable homes that honour its heritage and contribute to a thriving, inclusive Hexham and North East. We need the support of all town and all county councillors in order to work with the local authority to use everything within their powers to bring this vision to reality.
Okay. So I'm not really sure of the question there.
It wasn't a question on the agenda. It says we can draw relevant matters to the attention of the council.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else got any questions?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Van Collins. I'd just like to say, last Monday I was waiting to go up to see Admiral Ramsay's museum in Scotland, and I was waiting in the Wentworth car park, so I thought I'd take advantage of the facilities there, Wentworth toilets, and unfortunately they are in a poor condition with an unpleasant odour. The skylights do not even open to help ventilation. The Wentworth car park toilets must be one of the first places that visitors to the town take, and their poor condition must give visitors an initial adverse impression of the town. I assume that the town council members, as town residents, maybe do not have a need to use them, so are maybe not aware of their poor state. As far back as the town council meeting of the 4th of June 2018, I spoke about the poor conditions of the toilets, and at approximately 21 monthly meetings since then, until the 13th of May 2024, I endeavoured to make requests for improvements to be made there without success. I even received in September 2019 a detailed copy of the funds required for the refurbishment at a cost of £7,833.65 and had been allocated in the 2021 financial year from Mr. David Hunt, Neighbourhood Services Manager at Northumberland County Council. Still not done. My recollections are that Councillor Phyllis Aitken stated at the May 2024 Town Council meeting the priority was given to refurbishments of the toilets in the St Mary's Wing, and that Wentworth toilets would be done in April 2025. It states in the minutes that Councillor Phyllis Aitken is to pursue the matter with Mr. David Hunt at NCC. There have been many statements since 2018 in the Town Council minutes that the toilets are to be refurbished. It is now June 2025 and there does not appear that any work has started yet. I was wondering if a new date of confirmation had been allocated. There was even a photo in the local press in July 2022 of Councillor now Mayor Kennedy stating his concern why the town public loos have gone to pot and highlighting their need for improvement. I was wondering, should there not be something done about this, and maybe Councillor Phyllis Aitken can give us an update why this has not been done, and when she said it would be in April.
I did. There's been lots of building and planning in the town that has stalled this year. Obviously there's been an election which has stalled a lot of it, but then other works like the cycle path and the shambles have also been kicked back. So all we can do is, you said April 25, obviously the election was May, so I can chase that up with David for a new date, because the money was in this year's budget. It was allocated specifically for that, so I just need to chase them up on a date, basically.
Well, it was allocated in 2019.
Oh, I know, but then we had the St Mary's Place toilets done, so that there was a whole set of money came with. Was it just after that election? And then they overran on the St Mary's toilets. They did a clean up of the Seal and Town Green, so I recall. And the Wentworth was always, that was on that walk round we did with the leader of the council.
Yeah.
But 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So the money is apparently there to be spent, but whether we'll get a date or not, I can certainly follow up. I'm as disappointed as you, because I do use them, especially jog of the time, ladies of a certain age. So yes, I will follow that up with David, no problem.
Maybe if we do anything, look at the ones in the Seal, because the last time I was around there, yes.
Well, they said they've not upgraded those, they were just going to clean them, they were going to steam clean them more, like sort of 3 or 4 times a year, which is apparently as good as painting them. But we asked for ramps, we asked for baby changing facilities, they weren't delivered. But we were pleased with the St Mary's Place ones, but again, we need more. As you say, that is the heart of the tourist arrivals.
Well, as I say, it's the first place people go. And
it is indeed.
If they open the windows, it might improve things.
Yes. Everything's been delayed for various reasons. I'll get onto that when we do the feedback on, the updates on the development sites, but that's one of them, so yes, I'll change that for you, Barry.
I have a second question.
Very good, Stan. Well, I'll just add to that response. We, Councillor Fells-Aiken and I have pushed incredibly hard for work on the Hexham toilet provision. I had the rather infamous tour of the where I brought the leader of the council to Hexham to do a tour of our facilities and highlight the state that they were in. As mentioned, the St Mary's wine toilets were reopened after a number of years of closures, and they've been refurbished. However, I don't think that the rest of them are anywhere near as satisfactory.
It surprises me that St Mary's ones were closed. All of the things that go on in Beaumont Street during the summer. So
we'll chase that up. So question number 2, sir.
Why are the park lights left on during the day? Now they're off, but all during the winter and that. I mean, I've read minutes where you wanting money for the town and that, and I think the lights are excellent, but it puzzles me why they're left on all during the day. They've just recently gone up in the last, I would say, month or so. It puzzles me why they're left on. There's a lot of time in there.
No, so I'll add to that. So they are LED lights, so they cost very, very cheap to operate. Originally, some years ago, they used to be on end of November through December and going off around about just a little after, in the early part of January. So there was a number of us who thought, actually, the main cost is actually purchasing the lights and then actually getting them up and running. So we had a rethink about that and thought, actually, why not call them winter lights as opposed to just Christmas lights? It's because obviously December, January, certainly January and February going into March are the most, the darkest part of the year. And we thought actually having those lights on bring a bit of hope and a bit of security, but it enhances the Seal Park. And then it's amazing when you walk past that park and you can just see it when you get that low glow of the lighting. So these don't affect wildlife. They're very low level lighting and all that. There's no heat generated from them, so you don't see when you see old fashioned lights where you have like loads of moths and everything going around them. That doesn't happen with these. So they're very thoughtful lighting, low energy, and just to enhance the town. There is no switch on and switch off, unfortunately, to them. And that's why that left out during the day. It would actually cost us more money, actually, somebody going up and turn them on and turn them off than it would to do that. They did go on a little bit longer than we wanted to this year. I'll agree to that, but certainly, you know, I think personally, I think it does enhance the town, and actually just that low level hint of light. It brings something to it.
So it's more or less cost negligible.
It is cost negligible. It's very, very low cost.
I don't need to worry anymore.
No, thank you. But it's a good question. It's one I've had several times before. Any more questions? Right. Thank you. Okay. Right. Apologies for absence. We have apologies from Nigel Porter, Mike Dominique, and Simon Pigeon. Any disclosures of interest? No. Any dispensations? No? Oh, okay, right. Minutes of the last meeting. So we look at the minutes of the last meeting held on Monday, 12th of May, 2025. So I'll just go through these page by page. So it's page 1. Page 2, page 3, page 4. Any questions? Okay. Good. Right, so can I have permission to sign those? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Is it not the same here? And the date is the 19th of June. Okay, thank you. Okay, so on to item number 8, which is to approve the annual statement of accounts, the governance statement, and internal audit report. So you have papers in front of you. So this, as it says, it's
these will be the blue bits at the back.
okay. Thank you. So these are annually. These come around once a year, obviously, and basically all local authorities have to go through this procedure just to ensure that they have conducted themselves in a standard manner. Do you want to go through them, or do you want to? Yeah, I'll leave it to you.
Apologies for not getting this out any sooner, but the audit report only came back at 4 o'clock today, so there wasn't much time. The document that's started off with a letter is the actual report. You can go through that at your leisure. I was just going to highlight the bits where we have issues with, or where the auditor found issues. It's on 2 sections on the internal control objective. One in sections M and N, which is publicising the accounts sufficiently on the website. It needs to go back further than we've actually got on the website. I don't know if everybody's aware, but we've been looking at changing our website because the one that we've got is pretty impregnable, and that's part of the issue for the audit. But the documents are there, but not sufficiently obvious for the general public to go in and be able to see the documentation that's required. So it's part the obvious nature of the documentation on the website, and it's also a part that it should go back further than what's on. We've only got it back about 3 years, and it needs to go back 5.
Okay.
Everything else went through the audit, so that there's nothing to look up other than those 2 items. But if anybody's got any questions on the report that they want to raise with me at any point, then do get in touch. And well, I'll say a little bit more about the report when we get into the governance and the figures.
Okay, so if anybody's any questions, I'll have a question. Nobody. If we're going to go back to the 5 years, when will that be done?
Well, the information can go on straight away.
You're going to do that straight away?
That'll go on straight away.
Thanks.
Providing that it's been kept on the system somewhere, because it's before my time.
Sure.
And it was only raised as an issue this afternoon.
Absolutely.
So I haven't been able to check.
Right, so we'll look to add those on, those 2 previous years to the 3 that we have on already, just as soon as we can. Okay.
So the second part of everything is following on from the internal audit. We have to agree an annual governance statement. It's in page 4 of 6. You can see that document. It's titled at the top, Section 1, Annual Governance Statement 24-25. At the bottom is page 4 of 6. So, within that statement, we have to agree there's various statements within the document that we have to agree each year, and they have to be read out. Would you like me to do that? We have put in place arrangements for effective financial management during the year and for the preparation of the accounting statements. If anybody just disagrees with anything, shout out, and then we can formally agree at the end. We maintained an adequate system of internal control, including measures designed to prevent and detect fraud and corruption, and reviewed its effectiveness. We took all reasonable steps to assure ourselves that there are no matters of actual or potential non-compliance with the laws, regulations and proper practices that could have a significant financial effect on the ability of this authority to conduct its business or manage its finances. We provided proper opportunity during the year for the exercise of electors' rights in accordance with the requirements of the accounts and audit regulations. We carried out an assessment of the risks faced in this authority and took appropriate steps to manage those risks, including the introduction of internal controls and/or external insurance cover where required. We maintained throughout the year an adequate and effective system of internal audit of the accounting records and control systems. We took appropriate action on all matters raised in reports from internal and external audit. We considered whether any litigation, liabilities or commitments, events or transactions occurring either during or after the year end have a financial impact on this authority, and where appropriate have included them in the accounting statements. The last statement is not applicable because we don't have any trust funds.
Is everybody content?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Should we do the same? Good.
The next section is page 5, and we'll just go through the figures for the year.
But the accounting statement ones, this one.
So on here, we have to, because we went onto a new financial system this year with Scribe, there was a disparity noted of about £50 for tax. That means we'll have to restate last year's figure. But we've got all the details from the people who put the figures on explaining that discrepancy, and it was just to do with a VAT return. So the balance is brought forward this year at £125.50, and you can go through. I don't have to read all these figures out. You can read all these figures. That's the figures that have been approved today by the internal auditor, and those are the figures that are going to be sent off to external audit. All the council finances will be put on the council website. It'll go on Monday, and the public will have a period of 30 days to look at those figures before they are subject to external audit. So are we...
Can I ask a question? It was agreed with all of us, consensus, about the Seal Park, but some money for the Play Park.
Yeah.
Could we include that in some of the notes associated with this, that's why how the balance we brought forward affected, that's restricted from the... Is that where...
Well, it will be restricted from the point of time. It could be restricted from the point of time you made that decision, but this is previous to that time.
Right, I'm with you. I think that was one of the big holes, that precepts went up and people didn't understand why there was a double-digit increase in the precept. I just think it's worth noting somewhere that this month's been set aside for something very important, and that's where the money's going to.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I mean, it's not something that will go in the things to auditors, but if you want me to put something on the website when we publish the figures and say, have a look at the figures as a bit of an explanatory text, and we can do that.
I think that would be useful. I don't know what
Yeah, so wait to leave the size. Okay. There is a bit of there's one section there, Stephen, called explanation of variances. It hasn't actually printed today. But for anything that is a variance of more than 15%, you have to give an explanation. And it's not printed all over the text box. But for number 3, total of the receipts, that's down by 26% last year compared to the year before, and that was largely to do with the funding. Well, there's a few different factors, but we got the Section 106 money for the play park the year before, but not last year. So that difference in external funding coming in has meant that there's been a reduction in receipts, and also the cemetery had a reduction in receipts as well. So it's those two bits in there. Total other payments, Section 6. That's largely because previously we kept a lot of figures almost reserved within the budget. Things like the cemetery rafts, illuminations, some of the play area stuff. So I think historically, if it wasn't spent, it was rolled over, but it should really be in a reserve account, and we didn't do some of that activity that year. Because of that, it's resulted in the figures in sections 7 and 8, where there's been an increase in the money carried forward to the following year.
Just in terms of receipts from the cemetery, some people get very area and quite relaxed with it. There's more people using the cemetery for burials now with the increase, or is there a threshold that actually we're charging too much and we're going elsewhere?
Depends who you ask.
Which opinion?
If you ask the undertakers, they'll definitely say people are going elsewhere because we charge too much.
Yeah.
Some people have got, that's their stated aim, so it doesn't really, to a certain degree, cost isn't the main factor. We still have a lot of prepaid burials, so people who paid 20 years ago that we still need to honour, but we're not actually deriving any income from, because that wasn't ever put aside when it was when the prepayments were put in. We have done some work on it, and we're at the top end for Northumberland, but not all that high when you compare to the rest of the UK. I was talking to somebody the other day who, our HR and governance people, who said that historically the figure that they used to use was benchmark it against the Church of England rates. So that's something that I'm going to have a look at to see what structure they use.
Strange, it should apply supply and demand to cemetery usage. But
So I think just the point to clarify on this is that Hexham's charging is not out of kilter with other cemeteries. However, what I would highlight is that the quality of Hexham's cemetery is exemplary, and we have assurance each year when we get the green flag. So obviously this is about cost versus quality and those types of things. The question about whether there's a higher charge, well, there is for those who are not, who do not live in the parish of Hexham, because remember, each person who is a member of the parish of Hexham pays that council tax precept towards the Hexham Town Council, which means that helping toward paying the cemetery. So if you live outside the parish of Hexham and wish to be buried in Hexham, there is a premium put on that, so they pay toward that. So, but what I would say is, remember, you're buried a long time. So you pay a one-off cost, you're buried in Hexham cemetery, and then your grave is tended to for evermore. Obviously grass gets cut and everything else that goes with it. So you only pay once. It's not as if there's a running fee. It's a one-off payment. So we know cemeteries are expensive beings. And we have had, it's always been in these the previous 4 years, and I think this strategy will continue, is that we're trying to match the expenditure of the cemetery to the income that it brings as well, to try and match that off. So we have had that, and it does, just for the members of the public, we do speak about this very frequently in the Finance and General Services meeting each year. Okay.
Can we just have a decision to approve the statement of accounts, approve the governance, and approve the general audit and the day of 16th
Yeah.
June?
Thank you. Yeah, and thank you for everybody asking, for those asking questions. It's really helpful because it really challenges this, and that's what we want for assurance. Thank you. Right. Next item number 9 is to approve the council's financial risk register.
So you'll have a page, there's a 9-page document that looks like that's the financial risk register, and it just goes through various areas of financial risk, identifies the risk involved, determines the risk level and potential impact and what management or risk controls we have in place and what we're going to do about review or any further action required.
Anything else to highlight?
I think in general we're pretty proactive in terms of financial risk, in terms of, you know, we make a conscious decision not to handle any cash, which is one of the key areas of financial risk. We don't do checks, so that is the risk associated with checks are removed. Our financial systems are all online, and it requires 2 councillors to sign off anything that's raised by the council. So there's a number of different checks and balances put in place throughout our financial systems that seem to be pretty robust. I think the only and it's not a huge one, the only one that perhaps we're a little bit lax on compared to other councils is the security of our civic regalia. Some it's front and centre in terms of, you know, it has to go back behind a safe and only taken out under armed guard. So we're a little bit more relaxed on that one, but I think that's the only point where we significantly differ. I think that, and this is a document that should have been renewed probably a couple of years ago, and I've put it in as part of our annual review in May, so that it's considered every May rather than something that's left to forget.
I'll just add. So it is quite amusing talking about the chains of office. I do know of being part of the chain gang, as is commonly known, by Northumberland County Council. They recognise people who wear the chains as the chain gang. That's the sort of thing. But I do know, for example, some other councils, whereas the chain of office for Hexham is not as expensive as others, not by a considerable margin. Obviously it's worth some thousands, but not massive thousands. There is some councils where their chains are worth hundreds of thousands, and when the chairman of that council goes out in the chain, they actually have an armed guard, well, not an armed guard, but they do have a security guard who follows them all over the place, because of the value of that. Obviously you can imagine the expense of having a guard who actually follows it.
Is it the Met Gala, isn't it?
Is that because the historic one?
No, the actual just actual. It's just the actual how
it seems wrong somehow.
Hundreds of thousands on it does. I think it's very historic where I think it's South Shields, if I may be wrong, but I think it's South Shields, where South Shields was incredibly rich some time ago, and they built lots of big buildings, and the chain was incredibly expensive.
You should sell that.
Exactly.
If you hit them for a more blingy chain?
No, absolutely not. I wish it was a lighter chain, put it that way. a less tangly chain would be much more, would be a lot better. Yes. Suzanne.
No, it's just about the computer records and the backups to the iClouds. I just wondered, do we have the cemetery or burial plots digitised yet? Are they on? No. Because something that came up last remembrance was that a bit of paper that I was handed by Stephen about where the graves were that we had to walk around. And I know things are slowly being sort of digitised throughout the country. And I just wondered if we could really get on board with that, because that loss of that information over time. It'd be nice to feel that we were on top of stuff and had it backed up for future use.
No, apparently there was a lady in Australia who started digitising well, you put it on, effectively putting it onto a spreadsheet. But no, it hasn't happened for a while.
Yeah, but I wonder I digitised the remembrance ones, but I haven't done any of the others.
I mean, it's been done from 2000, but that's
nothing before
that's,
then.
That's not much.
It'd be nice to have the historical ones done.
It would, but it would be in terms of properly digitising it, so the names are searchable. It would be a significant bit of work. I mean, I know you can do it people can take an image of it and get it all kind of converted, but it's some of the writing is pretty tricky to read.
It's a great problem with cemeteries, isn't it? Because you bury the wrong people in the wrong places and visited everything.
It still happens now.
Yeah, I mean, we do have a new system that we've put in place from this financial year going forward that has the potential to digitise and map all the cemetery. And doing that from this point forward is pretty straightforward, but doing the last kind of 150 odd years retrospectively is tricky.
That's a good project for local school or history.
Well, as it happens, we've got somebody on work experience.
I'll bring it in.
Excellent. Oh, no, that's a job.
We've got one question.
Yes, Steve. Yes.
VAT. I noticed that we only do a VAT return once a year, which surprises me.
Every 6 months.
Every 6 months, is it? And what obviously there's a benefit to being VAT registered. How significant is that?
Well, it's
How much you claim back, or?
Well, I think the last one was about 25,000, something like that.
So it's quite significant in a sense.
It is significant.
Yeah. And that impacts upon our cash flow as well, I would presume, if you're doing it every 6 months.
Well, I mean, it could impact on our cash flow. It was one of the things that was discussed at one of the F&GPs a while ago, is how the council could potentially invest its money in different ways to generate a greater return, because we have some money in the public sector deposit fund, which does have a decent return, and I think it's probably something that the council would do well to look at in terms of maximising the interest of its deposits.
Okay, let's take an action. If we can get that under the finance and general purposes agenda, we'll do that, and we'll bring in John.
Thank you. Just a query, Andrew. Under financial controls and records, one of the controls is that there's a separation of duties.
Yeah.
Could you just talk us through how those duties are separated, please?
Yeah, I mean, the main separation of duty is whoever's raising the invoice, whether that's myself or Bettina, who does some work for us on a Tuesday morning. But we're not responsible for the payment of that.
Okay.
So if anything goes onto the bank, myself or Bettina will put that request for payment onto the bank and link it to an invoice, and all the background bits to that. But we're not physically in a position where we can authorise that payment. That has to be done by at least 2 councillors.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay, so Faith, if you can look to get that on there.
Yes, I think we should mention that.
If you can take up that, excellent. Thank you. So can we have permission to approve that council financial risk register? Thank you. Okay, so number 10, to receive an update on Hexham's potential development sites. So item A is the Hexham Middle School. I'll also defer to you, Councillor.
Yes, so as of the last meeting where I reported that spoke at strategic planning at the beginning of May when it came up there for the outline plan, the emphasis was very much, I spoke with our good friend in the audience from Hexham Civic Society and Community-Led Housing about the emphasis on homes, not houses, and that the quota for social housing would be over that which was set and not include the medical facility. As far as I know, that's underway. Every meeting I sit in where that comes up, it's at the back of my mind that we need these 500 homes. That target is very much always in my head at every committee. I know that that's the demand on housing in Hexham as of the housing needs survey done in 2022 by Coasts and Castles, and all the good work that you do as well. We will keep pushing for that, very much so. I'm now on strategic planning at County Hall, so effectively if anything bigger comes up there, we have a leg up, as it were. But yes, that will be going up and being portioned up, or hopefully by Advanced Northumberland turned into a social housing site, which is very much the emphasis that the design team and the officers got at strategic planning meeting.
Okay, old bus station. So I know a few things. I'm not really sure. I should remember some, to be honest. Let's have a think.
It's still in legal action, so it's hard to talk about.
Yes.
But they have had planning come forward since, haven't they, as well?
So that is an outline plan, isn't that right? There is an outline plan coming, yes. There's an outline
they're still
plan.
Involved in legal action.
Yes,
so I don't know quite how that works.
Yeah, there's some legal action.
Who's the outside plan? Who's submitted?
NISA, yeah. They'll be submitting that, yeah. There may be some changes to the car parking arrangements at some point, but I can't really say much further than that. But that's currently on that site.
And there's huge problems with antisocial behaviour back at the Ropery, so we've had to get that sorted out several times in the last couple of weeks. But it is the season for Midsummer Madness, so we're trying to sort of clamp down on that, and hopefully that's a lever to push DISLR to just move on.
Yes, exactly. It's incredibly tight. Toilets, well, we spoke about those. The West Road, I have no update on that one. Police houses, I did speak recently to the Police Crime Commissioner, and there seems to be some movement there. They are sort of looking to, I think they're up for sale now, and they have some sort of outline plan. I'm hoping something a bit more material will come through soon on that one, which is well needed after all these years of delay. Old Workhouse, we are aware of that there is a potential fraudulent case going on there, so I'm not really sure how much we're going to talk about that one, to be honest.
Well, it's under police investigation. It makes me really cross, because as you said, these people are land banking their asset group. They're not about people, they're not about communities, they're not about housing. And this is not just a local issue, it's not just a national issue. Now Blackstone are on our shores and involved in the railing cottages. They're very much sitting on these developments just because they're an asset. That's simply it. And yes, we will keep pushing as much as we can. That is a police issue now. They didn't turn up to meetings, they lied to us about digging ground twice. So, clearly there was something going on there that has now more or less come to light, but until it goes into receivership and comes out of receivership, there's not a lot we can do. It's like the Prospect House site that's now out and hopefully in estate agents near you very soon. But we'll just keep an eye on it for now. That's all we can do.
Yeah.
And safeguard the site.
I was thinking, given the update from Wendy on that building and useful comments there from Suzanne, I think Wendy was sort of intimating that we should give a commitment of support to community use of those buildings, for social housing if the opportunity presents itself, perhaps offering one of the groups like the the housing, community-led housing group taking the buildings on, or through the county council, or through...
No, nothing more than advance to take it on. It's
Through
just
advance.
waiting for it, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be how we get it done.
Could the community housing led portfolio not take that on? Is that not what the community housing is set up for, to take on projects?
Yeah, well, yeah, so I think that it would be useful if perhaps at the next meeting or something we formally made a commitment to support the use of the acquisition of the site by a body such as NCC or Development Arm.
But it's not, is a community housing led not supposed to do that?
Do you mean that NCC's?
Yeah.
No, as in the community housing company.
Community-led housing. Oh,
As a Hexham community housing
Yeah, if they
company.
were able to acquire it, but they would
Yeah.
need NCC support to do that.
Ah,
So maybe, I just think perhaps the next meeting we should make a statement just to say that we support the principle of that.
do you want to work up something?
Yeah.
So if you speak with the clerk and just come up with some sort of wording that we can bring to that.
Chair, can we not make a comment how disappointed we are with this, with the company that actually owns it?
Several companies, really.
Well, I just think we're in a position where we get rolled every time.
Oh.
Every time we get rolled, we always think how terrible it is, and we don't make a comment. I think we should make a big fuss about this.
Well, but I think we have on. I mean, look what we did with the Dysart. We have made big fusses in the past, but
I smile when you say Dysart because a 106 agreement that as long as they've got planning permission involved, apply for planning permission, we can't do one sort of stalling us every time.
Oh, totally.
They're stalling us every time. These guys, if they are what people believe they are, we should take a stance against it, a moral stance, not just a town council stand. What you are doing is fundamentally wrong.
Well, Blackstone are coming into Blythe, aren't they, in a way, and so the fact that they've got these properties here is really interesting when set against the new AI site. They really should be doing something, and I'm glad we're not letting them into property in Blythe. That's on the record, quite frankly. They're a nasty
it's an awful situation, but I think it's a system. I don't think it's like the local authority or county council local authority. I think it's the British system of ownership of property and land. It's so archaic.
I don't know, Roger, whether you could wrap it up in next month's meeting. Just so, what disappointment.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think it'd be also useful to. It's great to hear Suzanne's update and Derek's, but to try and pin down some commitment from senior, leadership at NCC. Regarding these buildings, because we've got 3 or 4 there that have just been sat in total impasse for the last decade or more. Maybe could we invite them along, or could we ask a specific question of them about matching some of these abandoned buildings?
Yep. Okay. Right. Shambles.
The work is starting.
Yes.
So it's no longer, well, it's not my wood, but yes, it's later than planned, and we're having the farmers market and some of the market in front of the Abbey, and hopefully the scaffolding will be done on the Abbey to take the extra spillage from that. But on the couple of weeks that it overlaps with the Abbey work, I think the farmers market are going down the side of the Abbey building where the old cemetery was towards the Seal Park. So we're going to have stalls there with marshals telling people where to go. But yes, the shambles work is underway and hopefully will be over by the end of September.
All right, I'll just read this out. We just received this. So there's going to be some social media promotion of what's happening at the shambles with regards to the markets and businesses being open. As part of this work, we are doing a photo call from the Hexham Community Partnership. So there's an open invite to councillors on Thursday, 11th of June, 9:45 at the shambles. Look out for Jamie from the Community Partnership. Right. So if anybody's interested in attending that, 9:45 on Thursday.
What are they doing at 9:45?
Photo shoot on the for the work to be done on the shambles.
Is anybody intending going in and look at that?
Yeah, just let Andrew know.
I'm saying, is anybody intending going in and I can let the county council know?
What's the purpose of the photo shoot?
Just to promote that the businesses are still open for business and what the market, how the market will operate.
Oh, okay.
Right. Second path.
Now this is a good one.
Yeah.
Our member on the active travel team, with that hat on, Wendy, you will like this. It's slightly listened to. So it went back to design board. Myself and Councillor Dwayne and Clark went down to meet the cycling team last week in half term to see what the redesign was, because I was a bit worried it would be cost saving and would lose all the safety methods, safety things that we put in, the crossings, the extra bus shelter, the redesign of the Pethhead junction. But they were all there. They'd redesigned the beginning bit near the station, which everyone was happy with, and they're narrowing the road now. So yes, I know we were very excited, and so the buses are going to stop on the road as well, which is going to slow the whole traffic down on that stretch to Corbridge beautifully. So they're not eating into the path anymore. It's fabulous. The guy who's redesigned it is part of the NCC team because they weren't happy with the original plans, and yes, a sensible solution has been struck. And me and Mike were really quite pleased with the redesign, and all the safety features are still in there. They've really listened, so we're pleased. And that starts, mid-June, and will go on for about a year, and they're doing it sort of two-pronged from the Corbridge side at the same time as the Hexham side, sort of meeting in the middle, and the depot is going to be based on the mole store lay-by at the far end of the Corbridge Road. They'll be based there, the team.
Good, thank you. Railway buildings and water tower, I'm not aware of any update on that, no.
I could give a brief one.
Yeah.
So, as Suzanne intimated, the buildings there, so while the station itself is owned by Network Rail and operated by Northern Rail, the commercial properties are controlled on a long lease by the American multinational Blackstone, who has a sort of national reputation, unfortunately, of raising rents.
Is it BlackRock?
It's part of BlackRock. It's a spin-off group, yes.
Right, okay. So, raising rents and then unfortunately kind of driving out the cheap and cheerful businesses that used to operate under arches and other kind of railway-related commercial premises. So, for example, Haley and Electric moved out because, partly because of the condition of the Grade 2 listed goods shed, but also because their rent went up on the railway cottages, so they're now down on Burn Lane. We do have contact for the press office at Blackstone, so we could ask them, for Arch Company, who are the name of the conglomerate or whatever, the subsection that's dealing with this, that controls this property. So we could ask them something specific to the press office, whether I don't know where they're based, whether they're in Manchester or London. Probably futile to invite them up, but we can ask them what their specific intention is.
Do you want to come up with just the formal words just to pass the clock?
I think they're good coming from the town council.
Yeah. If you could come up with formal words, I'll just have a word with Andrew and just come up with the formal words, one question, one answer, and the clock and send that off.
But particularly the cottages.
Yes, they're beautiful.
Yeah.
That naturally lend themselves to being, they were cottages that lend themselves to being reused for residential purposes.
Absolutely.
But need to be out of the hands of this company, really, don't they?
Yeah. Okay, West End Methodist. I'm still keeping a close link with the Reverend there, and obviously I've said that there's some interest from whether it be arts groups or the Hexham Town Council or various other people that we want that, because we know that is now not performing religious ceremonies anymore now. Public events are still taking place, but we will keep a close watch on that one. Rob's and Beals, I've got nothing more on that one. No, nothing on that one. Prospect Place.
Estate agency.
Prospect House. Yeah. There's apologies for Prospect Place. There was a building called Prospect Place, for instance. Prospect House. There is a report on the company's house from the administrators, just explaining how the company that was managing the site, how their administration is going to be dealt with, and basically it's some funding through the people who were owed money on the project just to bring it to completion. So they had a report in May, and the next one, I think they have to report every 6 months, but it would hopefully be completed by that time.
Could I just request, I did this before I think, but could we please have Abbey Clinic put on here? Because if we're going to be pressurising NCC, we may as well have them all on.
Yeah, good. Good. Yeah, so at Prospect House, the development there, that'll be, I mean, obviously, it was like 90% done, and then I went into administration, so I don't think it would take an awful lot to get that over the line, and hopefully into the housing stock of Hexham, and that will be, obviously brings lots of positivity, sort of, instead of having empty buildings, people living in those, and obviously the commerce that goes with that. Right, measurements. Sorry, John.
Just to go back to the potential development sites. Quite a number of these belong to the Gilesgate, Hexham North area, and the way the Electoral Commission divvied it up, we have this imbalance where the county councillor who was elected wasn't elected as a town councillor. Would it be possible for us to invite that county councillor to come and tell us what he knows about the different areas that are in his ward?
Yeah, we can.
A regular invitation.
Like he was the last time. Alright, I'll not say anything more. Yeah, we should do that. Right, number 11, Mayor's announcements. Right, so loads and loads of things up. I attended, along with the clerk and Stephen English, the funeral of the former clerk, Derek Tiffin, which took place in the chapel at the cemetery. I attended the opening of Stage Fright, who have now they've moved out of the community centre and now are on Battle Hill. They're now the little store there, so it's nice to just be there, their opening night. So do pop in. It's just, they're welcome people just to pop in and say hello, so that's a really good thing. So Stage Fright is special needs adults doing arts. So really good. 3rd of June, I attended the Northumberland Fire and Rescue. They did a driver's awareness session. So they did a presentation, and then they showed how they actually cut a car open with all their devices, which is just remarkable to watch. Hexham Town Council did help fund, because it was at the Mart. Hexham Town Council did help with that and funded the hire of the Mart on behalf of the Northumberland Fire and Rescue. So we were part of that, so I was really pleased to attend that, and it was just fascinating to see. Obviously, I think the key message was about people driving too fast. They don't do a lot of fires now. The fire and rescue service, it's a lot about rescuing people being in car crashes and all those types of things, motorcycle accidents and all those types of things. So it's really fascinating, and it's good to have good connection with them. 5th of June, Her Majesty the Queen attended Hexham, so alongside others, I met with the Queen. and she met with some of the charities that she has an interest in. She then did a walkabout and shook many hands of many people and lots of school children. It was very unfortunate that the downpour did take place when she was in Hexham for the half an hour, but there we go. 6th of June to the 9th of June we had the our friends of 33 years now from our French town of town twinning town of Noyon in Picardy in France. So it's just a really nice joining together of those two communities. I hosted again. It was nice that we had an attendance from the French Mayor Sandrine Duchel. And I gave her a little gift, which was for her son, who's 5 years old, and it was a little red squirrel, which is a little puppet, a gorgeous little thing, a little red squirrel. So I was telling her that as a red squirrel, these are very precious to Northumberland and Cumbria, and to parts of Scotland. You know, they're very rare. Obviously, they don't have them in France, the red squirrel. So they got that. So that's nice for us. What else? I would like. So we've got a contact. I got a contact last week, and sort of every year over the years, out of the blue, I get a contact from somebody who says, "Oh, can I come and do a work experience?" And I go, yeah. So our newest work experience person is, would you like to welcome yourself?
I'm James, I'm 17, I'm from QE 6th form, and I love politics. I took it, I study it currently. I thought this was perfect for my work experience, which I'm doing this week. This is my first day. I'm quite a lot of fun.
So welcome. Okay, so we'll have them digging graves by the end of the week. And maybe digitising all the
There's a few skeletons.
There's a few skeletons around the closets. That's exactly. So I was thinking, so we did have a second person who actually not long after you messaged me, a second person did ask, but obviously it was all just very last minute. So welcome, James. I think it's just fantastic that we do work experience for people, just so they can see how how we govern ourselves and how we do our democracy. So that's good. What else have I got? I've got loads of stuff. Oh, right. So coming up. We have a movie that was shot in Northumberland by Daniel Boyle, and actually in our midst we have one of those extras from that movie. Who are you a zombie in that movie? Or did you survive? Did you survive?
Survivor.
A survivor, yes. And we have one of our joint friends who's actually a zombie in the movie. Infected, yeah. Oh, okay, infected. So that's so Hexham is actually having an early viewing of 28 Years Later, which is the third of a series of 28 days, 28 weeks, and this is 20 years later. So I think it's shot on Holy Island, Rothbury,
Planky Mill, Kielder,
yeah,
Rothbury, Holy Island,
yeah.
Fountain, and Concert.
Yes, I've always found plenty of zombies there. So there we go. So
Where's the showing, Derek?
it's at the Forum.
No, when?
Oh, it's very soon.
19.
19.
Yeah, that may be. Is that the Newcastle one?
I think it opens on 19.
And I think it's the 21st maybe in Hexham. It's not long after. Not long after. A couple of days after, I think.
Will we recognise you?
Well, I'm on screen, but Alan Taylor Johnson sort of pushes in front of me. But Peter Thompson, who's resident, gets some good screen time as an infected. So. you might be opening soup night.
Yes, we've been discussing this with some hilarity how we might have some of our extras from 28 years later at Spook Night. Won't we?
that sounds good.
Good.
As long as we can.
Yeah, exactly. Good. So that's good news. That's good. Right. I think that is it. There is the clerk's asked just before you leave, if you could just have a look at this, which is just a list of your list of your names and addresses that'll go onto the website, just to make sure it's correct.
This is the information that is in the MOOC hall. So it's just to check that the information that is in there you are willing to have in a public place.
Oh yeah, so it's like your name, telephone number, mobile, telephone number, and your new Hexham email address. Okay. So check that out. I'll bring Suzanne and I'll bring Stephen.
Yeah, it was just to keep you informed about this amazing project that is ongoing. So before half term, I was invited to this. I went along with Councillor Domingue and ex-Councillor Beatty was there as well. In fact, the hall at the community centre was absolutely packed. And so this is Grace at number 28 again, doing an amazing community project for the last year and a half with digital voice and lottery funding. And it's basically the stories of Hexham East. And she brought in the first school and Youthy to add to this kind of time capsule of a project. But it doesn't just stop there. If you've got stories about growing up in Hexham East in the area, you can still scan in the QR code and feed into the website on those stories there. But there was some amazing photography from Hexham Youthy, who had been taught by digital voice to how to blend old and new photos together. So they had the swings in the Seal Park that hopefully will be refurbing soon. And it was kind of, one half of them was from the 1940s and then the other half was the same spot, up to date. Same swings, yes, we're comparing, oh dear. Yes, they've not worn well. But they were absolutely magical and the kids were clearly really inspired by this project. So please do, anyone in Hexham East, feed into this project because stories keep communities alive and together. And it was rather brilliant. So well done, number 28, and digital voice.
Good, Steve.
Just on your comments about Quink and other coming.
Yes.
I'm really disappointed with the behaviour of some people who've come to the town. We've, over a period of time, been welcoming, we've been tolerant, we've been kind and considerate. And when a group of people come from a couple of 100 miles away with megaphones and shouts it down, I think that's a deflection of what Hexham really is. It doesn't matter whether you're a royalist or not, but over a megaphone trying to verbally abuse a 77-year-old woman walking around Hexham Marketplace is something that I think I abhor. I'm not the greatest fan of royalty as such, but as such we should just look at ourselves and say this is not Hexham.
Yeah, I think my biggest disappointment with that, where you know, obviously it's a democracy and people can have a say, was we had Helen Wearmouth who was doing an excellent performance of doing the town crying, and she was absolutely drowned out by those demonstrators. I mean, the demonstrators were like 5 or 6 people, but they were incredibly noisy for what they were. And it was just, I know Helen was really disappointed because she just felt as though she couldn't sort of, perform the way she wanted to because of that.
But this is not who we are, is it?
No.
Well, there won't be homegrown dissenters.
No.
It's like, come on.
No. Right, okay, thank you, Steve, that's really helpful. And thanks for the prompt on for the town crier. Yeah. So to agree accounts for payment?
Yeah, so the accounts for payment is in 2 sections, both of which will go on the website once they've been approved. The first section is summary of receipts and payments, which will go through the budget line by line and just give a total of where we're up to in this current month and what the variance of that is from the
budget for the year. So there's 3 pages of that, and the second section is a listing of payments by each budget line for the month. So this is the format that you would, these dual documents of a summary of the budget and a list of individual payments for the month is the format that you will get at each town council meeting going forward.
So can I just say what a great and enormous step forward it is to see this for those who have been on the council forever, me. It's just actually seeing what the numbers actually are is fantastic. I know councillors in the previous council were very, very frustrated and kept asking for improvements, and we thank Andrew for bringing some clarity to this, because previous to this it was just so difficult to sort of reconcile what was going on in year. I mean, they were always got there by the end of the year, but in year was incredibly difficult. So I think this is a really jump forward, and thank you for that. So I know it's been a big, a lot of work on that. Okay, so can we agree those?
Yes.
Thank you. 13 to note the approved minutes of committee meetings. Right, so we have minutes of the Finance and General Purposes meeting of 22 April 25, page 1, that's it. Minutes of the Planning and Infrastructure Committee held on 8th April, page 1, page 2, page 3, that's it.
And community engagement is this week, coming to a question near you.
Yeah.
5:30 on Thursday.
And item 14, to note correspondence received, sir.
Not news, Northumberland CBA, rural bulletins, and chrysalis. Oh, and we've also had a freedom of information request on how much the council has paid, how much the council has spent on the Queen's visit.
Nil.
Well, how much the council has spent and how much officer time were the two questions. I mean, I was there for the afternoon.
Yes, but no. And I received a number of emails, which, because it wasn't making, I wasn't organising. I received a number of emails and messages asking why this and why that and what the other. But that wasn't me. It wasn't my party. It was the Lord Lieutenant. No, it was the Lord Lieutenant's party. That one. So that's quite a lot of questions. Well, right, good. Everybody okay?
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.